All right, guys, this is my Disclosure Day review. I did see the movie a couple of days ago. I'm going to give you my honest opinions on it. You know the drill here. If you are a longtime viewer of CLOWNFISH TV, when we do reviews like this, we usually give you a spoiler-free reaction, and then we go into details on the movie. If you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want to be spoiled, you probably want to turn the video off. But yeah, we're going to talk about Disclosure Day. That is Steven Spielberg's big new Alien movie. This is like the, fourth or fifth Alien movie he's done. And how did this one land compared to, say, Close Encounters or E.T. or some of his other movies? It's a mixed bag. It really is. And I'm really on the fence about this one. And it's part of the reason I think I've waited a couple of days to do a review on it, is I had to kind of digest it. And the conclusion I've come to is it's a pretty good movie that does not stick the landing, in my opinion. I think it has a really interesting premise. I think that how they handle the topic of disclosure is interesting. I think that it feels like a throwback to Steven Spielberg's earlier work, like Close Encounters, like Jaws. Definitely late 70s, early 80s, but because of that, it almost feels like a kind of a mishmash, a pastiche of his previous films. Like, I'm looking at particular scenes, I'm like, okay, I recognize that from this and this from that, and you know the drill. But it does set up a lot of really interesting talking points, thinking points. It does make you think about the topic of disclosure and how it would actually be handled. Right now it's being handled badly. I think it's being handled like a meme. We're making a lot of jokes about it, but it does roll in a lot of UFO lore. So obviously Steven Spielberg, or I think it's David Koepp wrote this one, are into that. And given how many alien movies Steven Spielberg has made so far, I think he's very into this stuff. But yeah, it's also very uneven. And I don't know, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if this is one you have to see on the big screen. Now, I guess it's actually doing pretty well this weekend, relatively speaking. A lot of publications are talking about how it's the biggest movie that he's done in 20 years that's an original movie, not counting the Jurassic Park sequels and, you know, all the other sequels that he's done, Indiana Jones, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like a Spielberg movie on the surface. It just, I don't know. It doesn't really bring a lot of new to the table, and I think that's kind of my feeling on it. And again, I know I'm being very vague. I don't want to give too many spoilers. The movie does have UFOs in it. It does set up a lot of questions about Disclosure Day. The acting, Emily Blunt's acting, is very, very good. The rest of the cast, yeah, they're okay. They're all right, but she's actually very, very good in the movie. There's a lot of DNA from Close Encounters in this one. I will tell you, and this I don't think is a spoiler because I think it's already been revealed. A lot of people speculated it was a direct sequel to Close Encounters. It is not. It's not a direct sequel to Close Encounters, but there's a lot of DNA in the movie from it, including the main plot point of having two lead characters, a man and a woman, experiencing different things, leading different lives, and then being brought together by the UFO phenomenon. And that is very much like Close Encounters. That was literally the plot of Close Encounters. There are some quick glimpses of things in the movie that could indicate that maybe possibly this takes place in the same universe, but I don't know. For sure, but it's definitely not a direct sequel. E.T. does not show up in this movie either. Very disappointing. I wanted E.T. Now, when I say it feels like a mishmash of Spielberg's greatest hits, it does, because it actually feels like multiple eras of Spielberg in a lot of ways. Like, the beginning of the movie feels like his newer stuff. It feels like Minority Report or AI or War of the Worlds. And then we start to drift into the more whimsical, fantastical Steven Spielberg from E.T. and Close Encounters, toward the end. And the ending of the movie feels like something ripped directly from the 70s or early 80s. It does. and again, I know I'm dancing around the issue. I want to get to the spoiler-filled review, so I can actually rip the Band-Aid off and tell you what my real thoughts are and grievances I had with this movie. But I did go see it with my son. He was going to do a review, and then he started not feeling well that night. And then yesterday, he's just like, you know what? I don't really care. So he liked it. He's like, there were some really great parts about this movie, but he's like, I didn't grow up watching Spielberg movies like you did. So he's like, my takeaway is going to be a little bit different. But he is into like, the UFO stuff, paranormal stuff. And there's a lot there for people that follow this because they really do kind of tick off all the check boxes of like, oh, we're going to talk about Roswell, and we're going to talk about Kecksburg, and we're going to talk about all the, so it feels almost like an episode of the X-Files in that regard. Like we're going to just go down the checklist of all the really famous UFO cases, and we're going to weave it into one story. But that's quite a thing to land on there. Let's give it a rating, a number rating, and then I'll go into why in a spoiler-filled section. Now, my wife did not watch this movie. She had zero interest in it. I did tell her about it after the fact, and she's like, well, maybe I'll check it out. If it's kind of like Close Encounters. My rating, I would say a 6 or a 7. It's not the greatest thing ever. It's not the worst thing ever. It is a Steven Spielberg movie about aliens. Now, if you're expecting the second coming of E.T. or Close Encounters, you're going to be disappointed because I don't think it's anywhere near that level, but it's not a bad movie. I can't say it's a bad movie. It's a very mid movie. It's a mostly good movie. Mostly watchable movie with a very, very questionable ending that I think I probably knocked off like 2 points for the ending. The ending is like, what the hell is going on? Yeah, so there it is. I would say, if you just want kind of a Spielberg experience again on the big screen, check it out. You will probably be disappointed in the ending. Some people were trying to defend the ending. I am not a big fan of the ending. So that being said, let's get into the spoiler-filled part because I know I keep dancing around the issue of what the movie's about. And they really did keep a lot of this secret. And if you don't want to be spoiled, again, check out 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, this movie has aliens in it, by the way, and UFOs and stuff. But yeah, they did try to keep a lot of this under wraps, and I think that actually kind of hurt it. But also, if you've seen the trailer, you've kind of seen the movie. So what I mean by that is there are no aliens for like 95% of the movie. Again, this is very similar to Close Encounters, but I would argue Close Encounters has more UFO stuff going on than Disclosure Day. We actually had actual UFOs and we had, them appearing and all this stuff. And it asked a lot of questions, and the payoff at the end was pretty good, I think, for Close Encounters. I think Close Encounters had a great payoff at the end. Watch the director's cut. Don't watch the one with the interior of the spaceship because that was dumb. It like, I'd rather leave it up to the imagination what's in the ship. There are different cuts of it for those of you who don't know. The TV version or the special edition or whatever, they spend like 10 minutes just like panning around inside the spaceship and it's like it was very Star Wars. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? But this one, yeah. So here's the plot. Emily Blunt's character is a meteorologist. She is in the one storyline, and then the other storyline is a cybersecurity guy who is this relatively unknown actor, and I can't remember his name. I'm going to be honest. I don't remember his name. But the cybersecurity guy was working for an organization, I think it was called Wardex, that is very much like a Lockheed Martin or a Northrop Grumman, a government adjacent contractor, weapons manufacturer, I think, / tech company. But they are the ones, they're the big bads. They're the ones who actually know what's up with the UFO stuff and the alien stuff. And he was going to smuggle out all of the footage of, alien contact, proof of alien contact, and he's going to blast it out to the world. That's how it starts. Actually, the movie starts with a wrestling match, and you might wonder if you're if you're in the right movie. But he's at a wrestling match, and then these Vortex guys, who I think are supposed to be coded as the Men in Black. So there's a lot of things going on in this movie. And I feel like a lot of it is inside baseball. I almost feel like this movie is Steven Spielberg telling you what he thinks is going on with Disclosure. So there's a lot of like deep cuts in the UFO lore. One of the things that comes up is the rumored story of Nixon and Jackie Gleason. For those of you who don't know, there was a story that Richard Nixon took Jackie Gleason, his friend Jackie Gleason, yeah, the honeymooners, to go see dead alien bodies that they had on ice. That was like a thing, and that Jackie Gleason was completely rattled. I could just see him doing the Ralph Cramden, like humna humna humna, look at these aliens or whatever. But that's a story. The Holloman Air Force Base, that seems to come up in this. Again, Kecksburg, Roswell. And the unified theory of everything is the one that's being widely circulated right now when we're talking about disclosure in the real world. And that's that the government's well aware of what's going on. They're working with defense contractors. And the defense contractors are actually the ones that are kind of pulling the strings, or there's like a shadow government that knows the whole story. And the presidents are on a need to know basis. And it's all about the technology and keeping it secret from people, and also keeping it secret from people because they can't handle it. They wouldn't be able to handle it. And that question comes up a lot. And that's one of the big issues throughout the course of the movie is, is it the morally correct thing to dump this on people? Now, the cybersecurity guy is dating a nun, an ex-nun, not currently a nun, but a former nun. And that is a question she wrestles with, which is what I think Steven Spielberg was trying to say, but said it badly in interviews. I know it was widely circulated. He was talking about like, would it shake your belief in God if there, were aliens or whatever was going around? And that does come up in the movie in regards to the nun. Like, she's like, this is going to destroy people's faith. And she actually doesn't want him to disclose that aliens are real. And she has a moral quandary about it. And eventually she comes to the conclusion that, like, aliens or no aliens, it doesn't shake my belief in God. It doesn't really change anything if there are other beings in the universe. So that's kind of resolved. But she's actually being controlled by the bad guy, who is Colin Firth, who is the guy that's in charge of Wardex, which is the Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman stand-in company. They control everything. And when I'm talking about like the UFO, the deep cuts, I get the vibe, and they never explicitly said that they were Men in Black, but I get the vibe that his company actually has control of the Men in Black. But the Men in Black are not actually aliens. The Men in Black are agents of this company whose job it is to keep it secret, but they pose as FBI agents, when it's convenient for them. Which is, again, this is a story that, if you follow this stuff, you've heard that they claim they're FBI sometimes, they claim they're the authority sometimes, but they're actually working for some other entity, and they got the black cars and the whole thing. So anyway, he's going to dump, or intends to dump, all of this information. His girlfriend, the nun, is against it. And then we cut away to Emily Blunt's character in a seemingly completely unrelated storyline. And she is the infamous newscaster. She's actually a weather girl. And on air, she comes across as kind of a ditz. And she's talking to her boyfriend at the, it makes more sense if you watch. She talks to her boyfriend at the breakfast table, and this cardinal flies in through the window. And she looks at the cardinal, and all of a sudden she is gifted with the magic ability to look at someone and be able to understand them and, kind of read their minds, read their thoughts, and also speak pretty much any language she wants to. So that's a whole thing. And then she thinks she's dealing with Parkinson's because her dad had Parkinson's or whatever. So I'll try to mesh this up a little bit. So we have these two characters you think are on two separate paths, and really it's the story, very much like Close Encounters, is leading them to collide, to get together. And they're the ones that are going to be responsible for disclosing the aliens to the world. And the aliens are real. I was reading that the aliens weren't real. That was all psyop. No, the aliens are actually aliens. So lots of things go on in the movie. And I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but it's yada, 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 car chases, yada, yada, yada. Weird Steven Spielberg, whimsical type, Goonies type action toward the end when we're supposed to be taking this thing very seriously. It's kind of dippy. For some reason, they built her house So throughout the whole movie, they show them constructing a set, and they're recreating Emily Blunt's character's house. So by the time she meets with the former Ward X guy, who is Coleman Domingo, who actually did a really good job in this too, and he defected, and now he wants to help with disclosure. So by the time they get to him, Emily Blunt and the cybersecurity guy, whose name I can't remember because he's been in like 2 movies, they built her house, and they built it inside a warehouse. And it's like, what the hell's going on? You're thinking it's going to be this big, huge, like important plot point. And it was basically there just so they could recreate the night that she and the cybersecurity guy were abducted by aliens. Yes. So we get to toward the end of the movie, and we're thinking this is going to be some big reveal. And it's like, oh no, we built your house so you can remember how you were abducted by aliens, but the aliens appeared to her as animals, which you've seen in the trailer. You've seen this, like I said, you've basically, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the whole movie. But yeah, this is where she's remembering being in the house, and she's like, oh my God. And it's like, think back to when you were little, and it's her and the boy, and that's in the trailer too. And yeah, she followed these animals. They came into her room in the middle of the night. She followed the animals into the woods, into the Hansel and Gretel house, basically. And they were aliens. They were not animals. They were aliens, and they were doing experiments on her. But this is it. They show the damn aliens in the trailer too. This is about as good of a look as them as you're going to get till the very, very end of the movie. So follows them into the house. The house is actually a spaceship. The animals, they were aliens in disguise, so she didn't freak the hell out. And apparently it was her and this boy were abducted. And I don't fully understand what the purpose here was. So throughout the movie, there are these little magic MacGuffin devices, these alien sticks, alien remote controls. And they can do pretty much anything. They can control people. The bad guy uses the alien remote control to control the cybersecurity guy's girlfriend, and tries to kill him with the girlfriend using her body. It's a whole thing. And also they can make you invisible and do a bunch of other stuff, I guess. Like, I don't fully understand how the alien remote controls work. Well, the aliens use a bunch of these alien remote controls to implant in Emily Blunt's character's brain this ability, and she only remembered it because the cardinal, which was probably an alien, looked her in the eyes and said the magic word or whatever. And then the cybersecurity guy, his superpower, it's like the Wonder Twins, right? Like you need both of them together. But his superpower was he could understand math like it was English. Like math is natural to him. He can look at code and understand. That's why he's a cyber hacker guy. He was a former hacker that they recruited to be a cybersecurity guy. So he's really good with numbers, freakishly good with numbers. He wasn't good with numbers, and then he was gifted the ability to be good with numbers. And he was awakened during college, which is why he, kind of went off the rails, I guess, because he couldn't understand why he could understand all these things. And so he had his awakening earlier. But for some reason, the aliens need these two to disclose that they exist, which I don't understand. Because basically, Steven Spielberg needed to have a reason to have magical aliens show up and gift people with abilities, and then have the whole storyline of these people coming together with their shared experiences of aliens and whatever. And so how it ends, I know I'm skipping a lot, but I'm actually not, because this basically is the plot of the movie. Should we or should we not disclose it? Let's get away from the bad guys. Why do I have these superpowers? But we don't see any like UFO chases or anything like that, like we had in Close Encounters, which that is still to this day one of a couple of things. The UFO chase and also the UFO descending out of the clouds and all that. The way Close Encounters build up the alien thing to be like legitimately freaky and otherworldly is in stark contrast to this, where it just kind of accepts it. Like, yeah, aliens are real and we're going to just rip the Band-Aid off. And Steven Spielberg's going to tell you what he thinks is actually going on. And in some ways it's a lot more pedestrian, because in Close Encounters, it did feel magical and otherworldly. And in this one, it's just like, all right, so the weather girl speaks gibberish and they've got a magic remote control. And there's just a lot of things. It just feels very utilitarian, I think, compared to previous Spielberg movies where there was, whimsy and magic and all that. And he tries to do that toward the end, but it's kind of like, you've already ruined it, So anyway, they get to the end. There's a whole bunch of, chases and stuff and slapstick comedy dealing with the bad guys, which I thought was very, very weird. They turn her house invisible, and then they're all invisible, and they have to escape from the bad guys, which was like a scene out of the Goonies, because the bad guys are like, running into things because they can't see them. And then the trucks are speeding away, and you can see the tracks of water spraying. It did feel like there were a lot of practical effects in this movie, which I thought was kind of cool. And toward the end, it actually feels like an older movie. It's so weird because the beginning of the movie, it feels like Minority Report, kind of like one of his new, I guess it's like 20 years old now, but one of his newer movies, like more hard sci-fi thriller type movies. And then by the end of it, it's like, okay, now we're in just like Goonies territory, and we're in ET territory. But the end of it is she goes back to the TV station where she worked at, and they're going to work together to broadcast all of the disclosure files, which mirrors what's going on kind of in the world right now, that they're dropping these batches of files, but they're going to drop them all at once on live TV. And none of how this played out is how this would actually play out. From what I know about broadcasting, they're going to run it without a delay. Whatever's on these thumb drives, they're going to just broadcast it to the world. Well, they do. And it's at this point, and this is the end of the movie. And at this point, it's like, okay, now it's just kind of sappy. And this is why I'm saying it, like, it doesn't stick the landing. We have the chase, we have the build up. We're like, okay, we're building up to something great. Like, this is going to be like earth shattering. No, it's just like, hey, we're going to sit here and the world's going to sit through the Roswell footage and like alien interrogations. And here's a whole bunch of UFO footage. Now, the UFO footage was interesting because they look like a lot of the ships from Close Encounters, which is why I'm saying maybe Close Encounters does exist in this world. And I'm pretty sure I saw the mountain from Close Encounters in there somewhere. They had a whole bunch of screens running different stuff, but they're like walking people through the whole thing. Like, here's Roswell, and here are alien bodies that we recovered from Roswell, and here's some aliens meeting some army people going into a tent. And the hows and the whys of Vortex and how they got involved, whatever. Who knows? Who cares, right? It's not important. What's important is the entire world knows now that there are aliens, and it shows people around, and this is very Spielberg. It shows people around the world looking at their phones, jaws dropped, like, oh my God, aliens are real. I don't think it would actually happen that way, but I'll tell you how the movie ends, which is why I'm like, okay, whatever, versus what I think would actually happen. Because everybody was just stunned. They were stunned into silence, which is what I think Steven Spielberg, his ideal version of disclosure, being a guy who's into the magical aliens, is that everybody would be so in awe that there were aliens in the universe that they would just put aside all their differences and whatever. Oh, I forgot to mention, yeah, World War III is impending. That's a whole thing too. I don't think it would actually play out this way. I think it would be absolute chaos. It'd be more like the end of Akira, in my personal opinion. So anyway, yeah, so they're broadcasting all the alien stuff, and then the big reveal. They wheel out I'm not kidding. They wheel out an alien in a wheelchair, because apparently the alien is in a wheelchair. It's on oxygen. They have it in like a little oxygen tent. They wheel it out into the TV studio, and then it talks to Emily Blunt's character and the cybersecurity guy. And you're like, okay, this is the big message she has, because her job is to be like the translator. This is the big message, guys. Okay, so she sits at the desk. They have her all ready. They have everything ready. The world is ready to hear the truth. And she just says, listen. And then it cuts to black. So I get the point. I understand what the point is. The point is, one, Spielberg probably couldn't even comprehend what the aliens were going to say. So they didn't want to go there. Like, we're going to leave it up to the audience's imagination. But it felt like there was no payoff for this. So basically the journey to disclosure was the Disclosure Day movie. I personally would have preferred seeing people's reaction to this. And I think it would be a lot more chaotic than what Steven Spielberg is proposing, which is everybody's going to be so awed by the magical aliens that they're going to put aside all their differences, whatever, and they're on their cell phones. And the ending felt very 70s, 80s to me, because I'm like, yeah, with all the technology we have, we're not talking artificial intelligence. We're not talking people on the internet, shit talking, all this stuff. Like, none of this happens. This is very much like Network, the ending. It was very Spielberg, but it was very Spielberg from decades ago. And I don't think he's really in tune with where people are right now. Like, they would not be in awe. How I think it would actually go is people would be angry and there would be like riots in the street. People would be shooting each other. People wouldn't be believing it. You'd have religious people saying they're demons and the whole thing. It would be chaos. It'd be absolute chaos if this actually happened. Most people wouldn't believe it. Honestly, people at this point are so tuned out to everything. They don't believe anything they see anymore, that they probably would just be like, oh, aliens. Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's Project Bluebeam. So yeah, I don't think it would really go that way. But again, this movie is more like Steven Spielberg's ideal disclosure scenario. Now, it's interesting because we talked about this on a podcast before, that people think Steven Spielberg was actually being used to prime the pump for disclosure with movies like Close Encounters and E.T. And it is very convenient timing that this movie came out when it came out. But it's also like, if this is what we're disclosing, it's like, and maybe it is that pedestrian if it's real, right? Maybe it is. Maybe it's just like, oh yeah, there's aliens, and yeah, we kind of reverse engineered their technology, and yeah, it's not that big of a deal, really. But he's done more interesting alien stuff. Close Encounters was definitely better. I think it was Taken. Was that the miniseries he did? I thought that was better than this. It was just very underwhelming, I guess, given the buildup with the promotion, and that the movie itself was actually very underwhelming. It promised a lot of answers, and it didn't deliver on really any of them. And that probably was the point, but it felt like a cop out to me. That's why I'm saying, like, the movie itself leading up to the ending was pretty okay, but the ending really for me is why I'd give it like a 6 or a 7, because it was a non-committal ending. It was just a cop out, I think. And the ending, the way it plays out, I've heard people say that their theater, that they were laughing, like it was supposed to be this big magical moment, this reveal that like, oh my God, guys, aliens are real and they're in the TV station. The alien is very CGI, and there are people like giggling because they wheel it out in a wheelchair. They roll it out in a wheelchair. This alien just like rolls up and they unzip the oxygen tank, and there's an alien just sitting in a wheelchair. And it's supposed to be this whole like, oh my God, they're real. And it was like, oh my God, that looks like a PS2 character or whatever. It wasn't this big, like, awe-inspiring moment. And I almost wish they had used like, practical effects for it or something. It wasn't awe-inspiring. It was just like, oh, finally we get to see an alien. So that's my review. I don't think you need to go to the theater to see this one. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I know a lot of people are shitting on it, but it definitely, I don't think it delivers on what it promised. It's not going to go down in history as being a Steven Spielberg classic on the levels of Close Encounter and E.T. And I don't know if he cares anymore. I mean, he's old and rich, right? But I do feel like this is Spielberg telling the audience what he thinks is actually going on and how these things are interconnected and all of that. That's my personal opinion. I think this is disclosure day for him. I think this is him just dumping what he knows. And like I said, a lot of it, if you're not into the UFO stuff, you're not going to understand what the hell's going on, really. But he does, and the people that he made this movie for do. And yeah, there we go, guys. So it did about 92 million this weekend, I guess, which is pretty good for given the way the summer's going. It's pretty good. It wasn't a super expensive movie, but there it is. What do you guys think? Have you seen it? Do you like it? Do you care? It's okay. It's all right. I'm gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.